Dr. Bijna Kotak Dasani has risen through the ranks of the global banking sector, working as Vice President of Deutsche Bank and Executive Director at Morgan Stanley. One of Leicester's biggest success stories, she started her journey at DMU at the Leicester Castle Business School in 2002, and she graduated with a BA in Business Administration 3 years later. Dedicating her career to championing diversity, equity and inclusion, Dr. Bijna has been recognised internationally for her work in empowering colleagues and was named by Yahoo Finance and Involve People in the top 30 ethnic minority executives Empower list. In 2020, Dr. Dasani's dedication to diversity and inclusion was recognised by the late Queen Elizabeth II in her birthday honours, and she received her MBE from Buckingham Palace for services to diversity and inclusion in financial services. She is now on the boards of a number of venture capital funds, and I'm delighted to say that she is joining us now on campus to explore her times at DMU. Welcome, Bijna.
Hi, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And it's such a beautiful day, and I'm seeing a part of the campus that I've never seen before, which makes me want to come back and be an undergrad all over again. So it's a real pleasure for me. Thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome. So you're originally from Leicester, and you chose to stay in the city when you went to university. What was the reason behind that?
My reason was more kind of, and I always say this, it's default versus design at that point in time. I needed to stay home close to my family for family reasons, and I needed to be able to keep my job full time. So at that point, I had completed my higher education, and I wanted to go to university, but I was working full time, and I needed to start a program for university that would allow me to study at night school. And the business school had launched a business degree that was being offered a few evenings a week, sort of 6 till 9, and that worked perfectly for me. So I could go to work sort of 9 to 5, wrap up, and be here for 6 o'clock. Although it wasn't, it wasn't the most conventional way of starting. For me, DMU just made it easy and convenient and comfortable to be able to balance all the other things that were going on in my life and to be able to get a degree, which I really, really wanted to do. So that's how my journey started.
And can you remember your first day on campus?
It was overwhelming. It was the building that I think was the previous Hugh Aston building.
Yeah.
And it was a very mature environment. So it also sort of felt very structured, very professional, very different to academia in the years prior. I have to say I was really excited. I just saw this big building and these beautiful lecture theatres and classrooms, and I thought, wow, this is like the next chapter. So I have to say it kind of stuck with me. And after that in my career, quite often when I started a new role in a new company or took on a new leadership position, it always sort of resonated with that feeling of going somewhere new and doing something that's slightly different, but it's opening you up to a new environment. So that first day has left a lifelong impression on me.
Was it sunny on your first day? Can you remember that?
It was not sunny, but it was, I was very nervous and it was very welcoming. But also the messaging of the campus and the environment was that, this is the real next step and it's an important one. So whereas, I had days thinking, am I going to juggle all of the things that I'm taking on? So I was only sort of quite young, 18 at the time, just turned, and it just reaffirmed that this was definitely the right thing to do, the right place to be. And I wanted to spend more and more time there over the course of my education. And I did. I ended up spending a lot of time on campus, weekends, evenings, and then I transitioned to the full-time program. Absolutely loved it.
And did you meet people in that first week that you're still in touch with?
Yes.
Or?
Yes. I came back to DMU to give a talk for Alistair Jones last year. He was one of my first lecturers, and again earlier this year. I have to say, of course, I made friends like we all do. through the cohort, and people have lost touch, people have stayed in touch, or sometimes you kind of lose each other and you find each other again. But what I really found wonderful was that my tutors also became lifelong friends, and I have many of them. When I was awarded my honorary doctorate from DMU 6 years ago, I reacquainted with a tutor then who, has become a very good friend since. And before that, I had a tutor, and she's not with the university anymore, but she became almost a mentor throughout my entire career. And I remember, she would check in with me every 6 months without fail and say, how are you doing? Is there anything you need? Do you want to come back to the university? And we even did a mentoring program for the business school cohorts way back in, I think, 2015. But what happened through that journey was, as I was going through my career thinking, I'm just sort of grinding away and chipping away at the next step and the next step, I never really, in my day job, had time to stop and think about, how far am I actually progressing and how far have I come since the university? But coming back and having those tutors kind of calling me back and then talk to the next cohort and the next cohort, that really helped me realize that actually this is something that can help the others. And yes, it's a step change every year or every other year, but there is progress. And it felt really nice. It felt like going home almost to a community of people where you could get advice without filters, support. You could have conversations with your alter ego almost, I guess, and you'd get a very real, honest, authentic view on how you're navigating things, and also support. No one's ever said to me, you can't come and use a business school because you're too old, for example. They might one day, but I can quite easily wander in, and it's nice because I'll always find a familiar friend and a familiar face.
Some people have described DMU as being a bit like a family. Do you think? Yeah,
it is. It is. I mean, you, for example, I was so happy when I learned that I was seeing you, and we've had so many interactions over the years. And for me, when my team said, you're going to see some familiar faces, I was like, perfect. I need nothing else. So I think the fact that DMU also retains good people over a long period of time, that says a lot about the university. I have been and spoken and run courses at other universities. I've also done my postgraduate at another university who I have a very good relationship with now. But the difference for me between the good and the great is where they're able to retain people and you're able to build relationships with those people. It's not about then the module or the syllabus or the classroom, beyond a point when you leave university. It's about those relationships. And for me, that has been a phenomenal part of the DMU journey.
That's lovely to hear.
It's been really nice.
And you talked a bit about tutors that you came across. Who do you think was the biggest influence on you? I mean, you don't have to name a person, but you can if you want. But
so the former dean of the business school was a huge catalyst for me, because I remember that I wanted to transition to full-time education to complete my degree in a shorter space of time, because part-time, I think it was in those days, 6 years to complete your undergraduate degree, and I wanted it wrapped up within the next 12 months when I got to a point in time. And I think it was maybe just me thinking I'm going to turn into an official adult and I want to get this done. And I was working on some other things, and I wanted to move to London, and having a degree was an important part of that. And I remember I went and asked him for a meeting, and he said, okay. And he and a couple of members of his team sort of sat with me, and I was a nervous ball. I was literally just a bundle of nerves. I went in front of him with like this long letter that I'd prepared and lots of material on how I was performing and lots of research I'd done. And really the ask was this, that can you let me take my exams for a whole bunch of modules over the summer when people do their retakes? And can you let me progress to the full-time final year and do some additional modules and graduate by the end of next year?
Not much then.
And I mean, he must have thought I was crazy to even let me in for that conversation, but he did. The point is he did. There wasn't a time here where I didn't feel heard or seen. And there were days even when I wanted to just crawl into a dark hole because, you're young and you get stressed and things get the better of you when you're doing exams and the weather's not great and everything adds up. And there were times where I actually tried to leave my degree program because I was overwhelmed with the number of things that I was juggling. But my tutors and the dean really gave me flexibility. And they said, it's okay, you're only human, but we believe that you've got potential. We believe you're talented. In those days, I didn't think I had any hope of, fulfilling all of these expectations they had of me. I just wanted to get to the next stage. And, a couple of times I did go to the leadership of the business school and say, listen, it's just too much. I'm juggling too many balls. I need to withdraw from the program. So can I, take away the credits for the modules that I've done in some form of certificate? I think in those days it was a diploma. And then in the future, if I can come back, I will. It was an if at those days. And they said categorically no. We are going to give you extensions. We are going to keep you as an enrolled student. We are going to give you additional support from your tutors if you need it. We're going to give you responses over the weekend if you need them. But we care about you and we believe that you can get through this. And we're all here to help you get through this because this is everyone's joint responsibility. And for me, that is DMU. I would never have got that anywhere else. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist anywhere else, but for me, that's the beauty of the people that DMU brings in. The students, the staff, the support system that it has. And honestly, I can't say that I went to DMU and I got a great undergraduate degree and then I graduated and that degree was the door that kind of unlocked many doors in my career, because having that first degree in a certain grade was the minimum criteria, for example, to break into investment banking. I have to be very thankful every single day that I had such wonderful people around me at that time who not only pushed and supported me for my own betterment when I couldn't see it, but they believed in me when I couldn't see it. And then at a later point, I really, became very respectful of that. And I think I've been here over the years and I've said, when somebody believes in you, even though you may not, it becomes your responsibility to respect that and at least to try and honor it. And for me, the first decade of my career was trying to, keep everybody that had believed in me proud. And I literally left here saying, okay, I'm not going to let you down. I'm really going to work hard. And thank you. And I think that is something that has been a very important part of my fabric.
That's some big stuff, isn't it? That powerful kind of people saying that they believe in you can be quite transformative.
For me, it was. Yeah. It was. And it also taught me to pay it forward.
Yes.
Because then when I went into organizations where I was responsible for hiring thousands, if not hundreds of people, it taught me to be empathetic and understand that it's not always black and white. It's not always just about what somebody can show on a piece of paper. Everyone's going through a journey. Everyone is surrounded by different circumstances. So, for example, when we have students coming through clearing, considering DMU, if they're coming through clearing because they are, kind of reevaluating their circumstances and thinking about what's best for the next stage of my life, that is where I would say DMU has a real USP in my view.
Good. Glad to hear it. So you went into investment banking. So what drew you to that as a career?
I had a mentor,
okay,
who worked in technology, but within an investment bank. And I remember he sort of called me one day and said, Bijna, there's a graduate program going, and I know you may know nothing about the industry and you may not even be interested, but the deadline's today at 5:00. Can you just submit an application and see how far it goes? Because I think you might be a good fit. And I had no clue what he was talking about. Absolutely none of the world that he was referring to. But he sent me a link on an email. I applied because I considered him as a good mentor and a friend. And he was kind enough to suggest it. And and then I got called for a group of interviews, one after the other, and I ended up with an offer at Credit Suisse, which was fantastic. It was a whole new world. And then obviously the more I read up and the more I researched and the more I went to these interviews in these beautiful parts of London, I mean, primarily Canary Wharf, coming from what was at that point a relatively small city, Leicester, it was a different world, and I loved learning and I was curious to learn. And I honestly met some very intelligent and smart people. And I just felt that there was always so much I could learn, because I believe that everyone you meet is an encyclopedia. They bring life experiences. They bring experiences from having grown up in different parts of of the world. They have different value systems. And I'm always curious about what makes people them, what makes them, their individual DNA. And so for me, investment banking kind of fueled that curiosity a lot, but it also taught me a lot. So it gave me the chance to go into working in parts of the world that I may not have otherwise. And the rest is history.
You've obviously had a career that's taken you all over the world. You've won some amazing prizes. Obviously, you got an MBE from the late Queen, which must have been amazing. So I guess they're kind of like some of the highlights, but that are always the highlights that everyone will draw attention to. But I wanted to ask you, like, what from your perspective has been, the highlight of your career? What's been the standout moment for you?
Honestly, I'm not there yet.
What
I'm not there yet.
I've got an MBE, but I'm not there yet.
No, so what I mean by that is I'm really thankful for everything, all the good, and I can't claim that it's me because I've been surrounded by good teachers, good mentors, good managers, good friends, good family, and I think that is. Everything that I do, it's a collective, right? And it's always attributed to an army of people supporting in the background. Like if I claim that my undergraduate degree at DMU, which was the first sort of milestone, is mine, that would be a lie. It's not. I think it's DMU's as much as it is mine, right? And everything that then followed, because without the support from the business school, I wouldn't have had that degree. At points, I wasn't even willing to pursue the end of that degree. But I think also with everything that I'm doing now, I want to focus on impact. And I think the MBE and all of the honours are wonderful to achieve certain milestones, and I'm very grateful for them. But I think they're also responsibilities. They make me sort of, like DMU did. I told you that when I left and I moved into investment banking, for the first 10 years, the only thing that was kind of on repeat in my mind was, oh my God, the business school and the dean and all these lecturers, they believed in me and I really don't want to let them down. I want to make them feel proud. And that still continues today. So when I'm, bestowed with an MBE or an honorary doctorate from the university or anything else, for me, it's a responsibility. I feel that I feel very blessed to receive this, but it's because I've had a lot of good people supporting me. I haven't done everything alone. And then secondly, it means that I need to do more and live up to this and live up to what it represents and stands for. And I am working actively, I think, on impact through, choosing who I work with, where I work, what I do now, but also making sure that I'm creating the right opportunities for people around me and paying it forward.
And you mentioned the honorary doctorate, and there's a question I wanted to ask you about. When you that first time when you arrived at DMU, or that maybe your first graduation, could you have imagined then that you'd be coming back to get an honorary degree, like years later from the university, for what you'd achieved?
No, I mean, at that point, I was quite overwhelmed anyway. For me, that was a really big milestone because there'd been a lot of umming and ahhing for me to get to that point. But at that point, what had happened is I'd gotten a place on the graduate program at Goldman Sachs. And I was going to be starting in New York, subject to passing some exams that they were going to put me through after my graduation. And DMU did this wonderful press release. But it was a really beautiful day, and the sun was shining then. And it was very overwhelming. And I felt on top of the world. I just felt super grateful and under a lot of pressure to do better. But I think I'd never imagined anything like it. And I'd never been in the press before either. And it was really, really overwhelming in the most beautiful way. But I always wanted to come back. And then when the honorary doctorate happened, I mean, I can still hear it, see it, sense it. It's like a dream. I can't quantify it. It was the most beautiful experience. And for me, particularly at the time it came, I don't really think I've ever talked about this, but when I got the letter, it was the 1st of December 2017, saying, we'd like to offer you the honorary doctorate. And then the ceremony was in July 2018. That actually became a catalyst for me. So I had been going through something which had repercussions on my health. And then whilst I was going through that, I was run over by a car. And I was at that point, I'd lost my sight, and I was told I had hours, if not minutes, to pull through. And that compounded with the other things that were going on. I got to a point in April of 2018, where I came out of the high risk zones, but I had been given 6 weeks to make it or not. And the one thing that I had in the back of my mind was, if I get better, I get to go to this thing at DMU in July. And I really want to go to DMU in July. And I really want to get that honorary doctorate. And I really want to try and inspire the next cohort. And for me, that actually helped my journey, because I believe in mind over matter. And it was science against my psyche at that point. And I went into a very aggressive journey of trying to heal enough to be able to get through that day. Obviously, healing continued for years after that. But again, I just kind of feel that the timing was almost like angelic for me. I don't know if that makes sense, but it gave me that. Again, I was dealing with and juggling a lot of very challenging balls in my life. And this thing happened at DMU, and there was this opportunity to come back and experience something beautiful. But also I was very much at my lowest of lows in many ways. And being here on stage that day in July 2018, being connected to all my lecturers, being surrounded by this infectious energy of positivity with, all the people that were graduating that summer, just coming back on campus, that took me from maybe a minus figure to a plus figure. And that, I believe, helped my journey in healing a lot as well. So I can't quantify the value of that, but the timing and the impact of that event and that day has a more profound impact on my life than I have the words to say.
Yeah, that's magic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It's magic, and I like to believe in magic.
Yeah, why not? And I suppose that's one of the things, and it's come through just in this conversation with you, that I think some of us who work at DMU and been here a long time, or have studied here, do feel it is quite a special place. And I don't know why. So I want to ask you, why do you think it's such a special place? Because you talk so affectionately about it.
I think absolutely the people, as I talked about earlier, but I think the campus is stunning. I mean, it's enchanting. We say magic, it is enchanting. And I think there's a lot of character, there's a lot of history, a lot of heritage. But there's also a lot of safety, physical safety as well as psychological. And I think, and then the other piece of, comfort around being able to be your true, authentic self. I never had to challenge who I was when I was here. If I had a good day or a bad day, if I was, of ethnic minority, if my complexion was brown, if I was, fat, thin, whatever it was, I was never labeled or judged here. It was just so easy to be. If I had, a Primark top, or a Primark didn't exist in those days, but, whatever it was, or a Gucci bag, it didn't matter. DMU and this entire collective across the campus here, it's a place where you can really be yourself and focus on the important stuff without labels, without judgment, without having to live up to false expectations, and with the right support when you need it. If you need it, it's there, and it's there in an abundance. If you don't need it, you've got all the tools at your peril to go be the best version of yourself that you can be. And I think that is a rare combination, because I've been out into the wider world since. I've worked and lived all over the world. I've met lots of interesting people from different places and spaces. And I've studied at other universities, and I've been in, given talks at other universities as well. And for me, this is something that is very, very unique. And again, like I said earlier, if I find the time to come back and be a full-time student, I would always choose DMU. I will make it happen.
And final question, if you could speak to your 17-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice about making your university choice, what would you tell them?
Oh, I'd do the same thing all over again. I'd come right back here. Only this time I would enjoy the experience full time from start to finish, because it goes by in a flash.
Yeah. Bijna, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.